Yes, yes, people. You know what time it is. You know what it is. It's G, and we are back in the building, and we're back after the international break with another match reaction. Crazy game, crazy game. Really, a real Jekyll and Hyde performance from Liverpool as they beat Wolves at Molineux 3-1. For those who watched the game, you definitely wouldn't have thought that after Liverpool's first half performance. And Wolves, really put Liverpool. I wouldn't say to the sword. Of course, they only scored the one goal. Probably should have had another in that first half. But, it was a real Jekyll and Hyde performance, that first half, completely dominated, by Wolves. You wouldn't have guessed who was the team who was struggling and who was the team who were coming, off a 15-game unbeaten run. But then that second half, things completely, turned around for Liverpool, made a few changes from Jurgen Klopp, and the game just completely, changed on its head as we saw Mo Salah with 2 assists, Harvey Elliott coming on. It was a crazy game. It was really, really a crazy game. We had Jarrell Kwanzaa, making his first start for Liverpool, in that game. Absolutely excellent. But, we'll dive into all of that in a second. Guys, please make sure first and foremost that you smash that like button, subscribe if you are new. We are on the road to 900 subs. So please make sure you're hitting that subscribe button for me, and let's dive into it.
Through the lot, now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
Yes, people, what is going on? We're here with another match reaction from that Liverpool game. As I mentioned before, in the intro, that was a crazy game. That was a crazy game, and it was quite interesting to see, fan reaction. Of course, when your team's not really playing that well, people are going to have things to say. And then when your team, inevitably gets a 3-1 victory, people are going to have things to say. The outlook and the perspectives of individuals is obviously going to change. But as I mentioned before, in that first half of the game, Liverpool winning overall, they're winning 3-1. In that first half, Hwang, for Wolves, got that goal in the 7th minute. And if I'm being totally honest with you, it was so crazy. Another 12:30 kickoff. We already know about Liverpool's record, 12:30 kickoffs. Not really that good in the last, I think it's 7, 8 games now that we've had in over the last season and a bit now. We just couldn't start well at all. We were just all over the gaff. And one of the main things that I took away really from that first half was Liverpool's level of intensity. I think that's been a problem for a little while now for me anyway. Personally, it seems to be something that is a reoccurring thing. For some weird reason, especially in these 12:30 kickoffs, we just do not start well. Now, a lot of people will give the, I don't want to say excuse, so to speak. They won't, they're going to speak about, things like players having to travel all over the world, and South American players not really coming back fit, and, players away on international duty, all of these kind of various different things. But ultimately, it's the same, for Wolves. I mean, they might not have as many South American players as Liverpool, of course not. And they might not even have as many international players, so to speak, but they've still got players who've had to go away on international duty and, have to play some football and stuff like that. And it's like that for most teams, but ultimately, Liverpool fans are going to have, something to say, about that anyway. But we were able to get the 3-1 victory in the end. But yeah, for me, it was, again, I said it in the intro, man, it was a real Jekyll and Hyde performance from Liverpool. I just, that felt like I think the best way really for me is, or the best way for me to describe it is, in that first half, that's where I'm looking at Liverpool and I'm saying to myself, when a team, is pressing you, when a team is, really giving, a high level of intensity, within the game, that's where I'm looking at your quality players. So the Szoboszlais, the McAllisters, the Salahs, the Gakpos, people of that kind of ilk. Even the Joe Gomez at the back, who's probably him and Robbo being the leaders, back there, Matip as well. I'm expecting you guys to really come to the front and show everybody. If I'm being 100% honest with you, I'm expecting you guys to, show the quality. Of course, we can talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold, not playing, Virgil van Dijk not playing, Canate obviously not playing, Thiago's obviously not there. So of course, when you've got 4 or 5 players who probably would be starters, most teams, well, unless you're Manchester City, most teams, of course, is going to hit you. But when you've still got relative quality on the pitch, I still expect to see better performances, than what I saw, in that first half. And I don't know what we can attribute that to. I really don't. I think Liverpool have been like that really all season, bar one game against Aston Villa. I think that was probably the only game where I could say, yeah, from start to finish, Liverpool were really, really good. Intensity, the level of play, possession, all these kind of different things. I think that's the only game I can realistically think of off the top of my head. But every other game that we've had this season, it's been like this. It's really, really been like this. And obviously, for those who watched the game, you'll remember. We saw, Wolves obviously go 1-0 ahead, and then they should have went 2-0 ahead. And to be honest, they were so dominant in that first half. You would have thought that Wolves were Liverpool, and Liverpool were Wolves. In the way that we were playing, and all these other various different things. It didn't make any real sense to me. The lineup was relatively strong. As I mentioned before, we had Jarell Konza starting at the back there. Obviously, Canate not really fit. Virgil van Dijk obviously out. Trent Alexander-Arnold obviously out. So Joe Gomez had to, slot in at right back. But, I still didn't think that it was a weak team, so to speak, against a Wolves side. It's different, of course, if you're playing against Manchester City, Arsenal, even like a Newcastle or something of that kind of Tottenham, those kind of teams, then I can understand. Then I can say, well, this team, I kind of almost expect that kind of performance. I didn't expect that against Wolves. I didn't think that we should be struggling, so much. And honestly, I don't really know what it was. I really don't know. I think, of course, I didn't watch the Jurgen Klopp press conference, so I don't know what he's really saying about that first half. I do remember reading a quote, obviously him talking about, first half really bad and then the second half being a lot better. But I want to know, why, because we seem to be seeing that a lot this season. That seems to be a theme for Liverpool, is that it's never sustained. Nothing's ever sustained, within these games. Of course, it's early part of the season, so who cares? You got 3 points. We can just move on, and everyone, I guess, just assumes that eventually it will just get better. For me, I'm still quite skeptical about that. I'm still quite skeptical about, whether or not this is going to be something that, eventually Liverpool will just click and then, go from there. Even when you look at, say, like a team like Manchester City, for example, even when they're not playing to their fantastic worldly standards or anything like that, they're still quality. They're still quality. You just know that it could be better. Whereas with Liverpool, we don't really know. If I'm being totally honest with you, we don't know if this is just. It's something I mentioned on Big Up Jerry as well, on his show, on the watch along on the weekend. Something I mentioned about, if Liverpool are able to scummy their way to a title challenge and stuff like that, I'm here for it. I'm totally here for it. I'm not going to care, whatsoever. If I'm being 100% honest with you, but I just don't think that this is going to be a sustainable thing, throughout the season. If I'm being 100% honest with you. Obviously, injuries are probably going to play a part. Games, coming thick and fast. As we progress throughout the season and things like that. So it is going to be very, very interesting to kind of see, how this kind of pans out, how this works and stuff like that. But it is what it is. As I mentioned before, we got the 3 points, 3-1 victory. Completely different game after the second, once the second half obviously commenced. So, it is what it is. I guess we'll paper over the cracks as much as possible. Just keep getting the 3 points, and then we'll move from there. But obviously, to the game in itself, there's a few players I wanted to just take a look at. and have a little talk about. And the first one is Joe Gomez, obviously slotting in for Trent Alexander-Arnold in that right back position. In that first half, again, it was such a weird performance. He was on obviously playing right back, kind of playing that inverted role, which was a bit weird because I mean he's not good going forward at all. Do you know what I mean? He's really, really not comfortable going forward with the ball. So, for Klopp to ask him to do that, fair enough. Maybe he just thought, you know what, that's just what we're used to doing. Obviously, when Trent Alexander-Arnold is there, who can obviously come into the middle of the pitch, playing that midfield position, almost in that pivot position, and obviously as well, he can also get himself forward, and that's what Joe Gomez was trying to do. But it was kind of evident that he isn't good at doing that. And it's funny because we've changed, our kind of I wouldn't even say style because the style's relatively the same, but in terms of our focus, where we want our danger men to be, where we want certain players to pick up the ball and stuff like that. Obviously, you remember Trent Alexander-Arnold, in our pomp, when Liverpool were really, really good, winning the Champions League, Premier League, and stuff like that. You'll remember Trent, he spent most of his time out wide. And then obviously towards the back end of last season, what we started to do is bring Trent more into the midfield position. So we've kind of changed our focus in that kind of sense. My thing is, you've changed like your whole focus for one player. Fair enough. If you think that player is good enough for the team to do that, whatever. It is what it is. We're doing it anyway, so there's no point moaning and talking about it. But if you're going to do that, if that player is not there, and this is something that I really, really was looking at throughout the summer, if that player is not there, what do you then do? And obviously, it's only one game, so let's wait and see if this continues to happen, throughout the season. But when that player is not there, I expect you to change the way that we play in terms of the focus, in terms of the roles that you're asking from certain players on the pitch. But we didn't do that. We actually didn't do that. We kind of kept it the same, and it was even weird because if you were going to play an inverted role, wouldn't it have made more sense maybe to put Robbo potentially in that inverted role? Obviously, we know you want Robbo, coming out wide. In fact, we saw with Robbo's goal at the end there, he was effectively in that right wing position / up front, coming in. And I felt that that would have made more sense in the grand scheme of things because we don't have Trent Alexander-Arnold. And if you still want to continue playing that kind of inverted role, but he didn't do that. He kind of persisted with Joe Gomez out there. And unfortunately for Joe Gomez, it's not his fault. Of course, the manager's asking you to do a role there. So, he's going to go out there and do it because he's a professional, but he just wasn't good enough to do that role, in the game in itself. And, it really, really did show. It really, really did show when he was on the ball, in and out of possession, he just didn't really look that comfortable, if I'm being totally honest with you, up against Neto on that side. Neto had his number, if I'm being totally honest with you. It was only really in the second half where it kind of changed. But for me, the second half, really, all that kind of was personally the way I looked at that second half. And obviously, I know everyone's like, "Oh my goodness, Liverpool amazing in the second half." I don't even feel like we was amazing in that second half. What I did think was Wolves dropped their intensity level. They couldn't keep up, or they couldn't keep up their intensity level, within the game. And because they couldn't keep up that intensity level, what you then saw is Liverpool getting on the ball more, dominating possession a lot better, being able to, as Wolves were getting tired, jaded legs. Of course, the movement of some of our players, the Salahs and stuff like that, Diaz when he came on, Harvey Elliott when he came on, stuff like that. When those kind of players have got time on the ball, of course, like most, if not every single team in the Premier League, bar maybe Luton, no disrespect, when you give these guys time on the ball, of course they're going to hurt you. And we've got a lot more quality, than Wolves. That's why for me, it was more about quality kind of saving the day as opposed to Liverpool looking amazing or anything like that. Wolves are just tired because we saw in that first half, and that's where I was really judging Liverpool in that first half. When a team is coming on to you, when you're feeling a little bit of pressure, where are your top players? What are your top players doing? Are they coming? Are they showing what they're worth, so to speak? And we saw when Liverpool put under a little bit of pressure, and then obviously over the first half, it started to grow and stuff like that. And Wolves were enjoying possession, enjoying, let me not say enjoying possession. They were enjoying bits of possession, passages of play and stuff like that, finding their danger men and things like that. Liverpool just looked so off it. It was, it was just so Jekyll and Hyde. That first half performance was like a 0.5, out of 10. To be honest with you, and then again in that second half, Wolves getting tired. Then we were just able to get on the ball more. We were just able to find players, Szoboszlai, things like that. Which we'll get into, in a second. But in regards to like Joe Gomez, as I mentioned before, it, it's like I feel sorry for him because, you know, obviously he wants to get these run of games to be able to show that he can be a part of the squad, he can be a part of the team, and things like that. But yeah, the games like this don't fill people with confidence, if I'm being totally honest with you. So yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22. But ultimately, it is what it is. Jarell Konza, making his first start, as I mentioned, for Liverpool. Really, he was my man of the match. Really, really good performance. Big up Ram and JJ. We spoke before the game, and I said, watch out for your boy. I mean, I don't want to see your boy making mistakes or anything like that. Of course, he's only young. It's his first start, but he was playing like the most senior player in the team. That's how I kind of saw it. With him, he was playing like the player who has played over 100 games to 200 games for Liverpool. He was almost, I wouldn't even say marshalling the defense, so to speak, but he was comfortable in and out of possession. Positionally, he was really, really good. He was spraying passes and things like that. Really, really good, performance from him. You can see here with some of the statistics and stuff like that. But even looking at this, obviously, the stats were good. The stats were really, really good, for Kwanzaa. But forget the stats, even just watch the game. He was really, really, really good. And he was, in my personal opinion, he was the only player on the pitch who had a good first half and a good second half. It was generally the players in and around him were really, really poor. Some of the players that we had a really crap first half, and then in the second half they were able to, get on the ball more and they started to dominate play a little bit. With him, he kept and remained consistent, and I was so impressed with that kind of performance. I wouldn't say it showed me anything, so to speak, but it also made me a bit more confident in him, a little bit more confident, to see him come into a game like that, when there's injuries, there's no Van Dijk next to you, there's no Trent next to you, the team kind of playing in disarray. Can you keep up? And this is what I keep talking about. Can you keep up those performance levels even when others around you are maybe not up to par or just not really at it? He was the only player who was able to do that in the entire game, and I was honestly, I was genuinely impressed with his performance, and I would love to continue to see that from him. I hope he does get some more games. Obviously, Europa League, I think he'll play and stuff like that. It's only one game, I know, so I don't want to go too overboard with the assessment of him as a whole, but in just reference to this game specifically, really, really good performance, my man of the match. There isn't really much more that you could possibly say about him. But we move on to another player who played, which was McAllister. I don't know. I really don't know when it comes to McAllister. Obviously, he's played in all the games. He's got himself sent off in one game. Obviously, yes, it was rescinded and stuff like that. Klopp's obviously asking him to play, in this kind of DM position. But yeah, it was kind of weird. It was like drop into that DM position, but obviously he was, trying to venture forward and stuff like that. He only lasted the 45 minutes. Absolutely atrocious. He was probably, alongside Jones, he was probably the worst midfielder that we had in that first half, if I'm being totally honest with you. It's I don't really know when it comes to McAllister, because I like him, but I've not really been that impressed with him, since he joined Liverpool. I don't really feel that he's really done that well. Now, of course, he's just joined. Again, people are going to caveat and say this, that, and the third. Oh, new club and all these kind of things, but I've not really seen really too many good performances. What I've seen from him is like good bits of play within some games that he's obviously played in, but as a whole, I'm just not really seeing it. Now, is that a tactical thing in terms of the position that Klopp's asking him to play, the role that he's asking McAllister to do? I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, in that game, against Wolves, he was just. I mean, again, we can use the excuse of international football and all that kind of stuff, and fair enough. If you want to play that card, then cool, we can play that card. But I've seen this performance from him in most games. To be honest with you, I've not really been impressed, with him in a general sense. So yeah, it was a bit of a weird one for McAllister. And again, luckily we were able to, still get the victory regardless of that first half performance. But it was another game that I felt he was in the midfield defensively in transition. Again, he's a part of that midfield. He's a part of the team, should I say, not even just the midfield, but he's a part of the team. So, I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, on the ball, you're always going to be nice. You're always going to be nice. That's just, you're that type of player. So I expect it. But off the ball, especially in a team like Liverpool, where off the ball is probably as important as on the ball, yeah, it's just not really hitting. If I'm being 100% honest, when it does come to when it does come to McAllister. So yeah, we chalk off this game anyway. We move on. As I mentioned, we got the 3 points, so we're really not here to complain. Another player I really wanted to take a look at was obviously Szoboszlai. Again, there's been a lot of talk of Szoboszlai, everyone speaking about him, Gerard regen and all these kind of things, blah, 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 and stuff like that. First half, again, he was poor, misplacing passes, not really connecting with that midfield, running around, not doing anything really useful or effective, getting bypassed in the midfield alongside others. But again, he's a part of that midfield where they're all getting bypassed. Wasn't really intense. Uh, yeah, he was crap in that first half, if I'm being totally honest with you. You can see it with the heat map as well. He's everywhere. And that first half, again, I'm looking at you. What are you offering me? Do you know what I mean? When the team's not playing well, so to speak, and the other team have got the upper hand, just like I said about Jarell Kwanzaa, I still expect to see you doing something. Do you know what I mean? I don't mind if obviously if the strikers are not scoring goals and stuff like that, fair enough. That's their job. And if they're not doing it, then cool, we can get onto the strikers. But with you in a general sense, it was just a whole lot of running around for nothing. And then in the second half, he was able to, get on the ball a lot more. We can see here with the stats and stuff like that. His passing accuracy pretty decent, 83%. Long balls, not really that good. Ground duels, one half of them. Aerial duels, again, half of them. Lost possession 23 times and stuff like that. Even the lost possession stuff, I'm not really looking at that too tough, too tough, because some of the passes, you can see it was just a lack of communication from both him and the attackers, and it was just like the relationship just wasn't really there. But it's just so interesting when you're watching Szoboszlai. As I mentioned, everyone always talks about him as being this Gerard regen, and I love Szoboszlai. I think he's a really, really good player, and I think Liverpool done really, really well to sign someone like him. But yeah, it's just not really hitting for me when it comes to Szoboszlai. Obviously, he's not been as bad, obviously, as McAllister, in my personal opinion. He's been way better, in that kind of sense. But I don't like judging against other players, so to speak, rather look at him in isolation. And again, it might be the role that Jurgen Klopp is asking him to do in that second half. He was tasked with sitting a little bit deeper alongside Curtis Jones in that midfield. Is that the position for him to potentially play? Does it make more sense to maybe play him, in that sixth position, as opposed to trying to keep playing, McAllister in there? Because at the moment it looks like it looks like Klopp isn't getting that part right. Whereas in pre-season, I think I remember a game where McAllister was further forward and Szoboszlai was a little bit deeper, and you saw the talents of McAllister. You saw what he's really, really good at, because in my opinion, I think he's a better passer than Szoboszlai, and he can find those cute passes and things like that. But Szoboszlai is a better midfielder, a bit more of an all-rounder, he's a bit more industrious and things like that. It might make a bit more sense to play him a bit deeper as opposed to playing, McAllister in there. But as a whole, looking at Szoboszlai, yeah, I mean, like I said, he was able to get on the ball more. He was then able to pick up passes and things like that. He was able to show the quality that we know that he does have. And it's easier to show that quality when a team is sitting off you, not pressing you as much and stuff like that. That first half is where I'm looking at Szoboszlai. Okay, the team's not playing that well. Again, like I mentioned before with all the other players, if the team's not playing that well, what are you offering? For me, he's just running around, just running around, just exactly what Henderson used to do. I've seen Henderson play that same first half many a time, especially last season, but many a time, running around, not doing anything useful and stuff like that. And he could have easily have come off as well. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he would. No one in that midfield anyway was exempt from coming off. No one in the team, to be honest, but he was not one of the players I was like, you could have kept him on like he did so. And then obviously he grew into the game, but you could have taken him off alongside McAllister for whoever else is available, on the bench and stuff like that. But yeah, like I said, poor first half, obviously got better in that second half. But yeah, I'm still a little bit miffed when it comes to his role, kind of within the team and stuff like that. And one of the things I'll definitely say is me, Rom's Jerry-ish, we always joke about these kind of things in regards to Jurgen Klopp and what he does with technical attacking flair, whatever kind of players, those type of players, the Luis Diaz and stuff like the Thiagos and things like that. We always joke about when Klopp gets a hold of you, he just kills that kind of natural instinct. And obviously that's what I feel that he's obviously done with Szoboszlai. Now again, if it's for the betterment of the team, it's not going to matter at the end of the day. If that means then Szoboszlai is going to be a runner, he's going to be someone who's just going to be running around, being industrious, and can pick out a pass every now and again, and he's got a very, very good shot on him, can take free kicks, then it won't really matter if obviously that's to the betterment of the team. But what we're seeing from Szoboszlai is we're not going to see that double-double. In my personal opinion, I'll be so surprised if he gets, he's got a goal already, so maybe, but I'll be surprised if he gets anywhere near the type of numbers that he got for RB Leipzig. Obviously, the roles are different, and that's the role that I thought that we were signing him for, but we're not using him in that kind of way. We're using him in a different kind of way. So it is funny and it's interesting to kind of see, Szoboszlai and his kind of thing. But yeah, I think that's kind of it when it comes to, when it does come to Szoboszlai. Elliot came on in that second half. Really, really, again, another one alongside Jarell Quansah. In my opinion, Liverpool's second best player, on the pitch, and he didn't even start the game. He's showing a lot when he comes off the bench. Now, whether that's just because he's got energy when he does come on the pitch and the other players are just not showing that level of energy and that level of intensity, whatever it is, he's playing really, really well when he does come on. He's just showing that extra little bit. He's showing that he really wants to play for the team. He's showing that he in his eyes, I'm assuming that he deserves to start games now, kind of thing. And of course, we used him quite a lot last season. But when he came on, I just felt like, again, Wolves were tired, and it was like the perfect substitution. Big up Klopp for that one. It was like the perfect time to bring him on, because Wolves were really, really looking just knackered and stuff like that. So when he brought in Harvey Elliott, who is just abundance of energy and stuff like that, you could see he was getting on the ball a bit more. You could see that, again, the level of intensity. You could see the passes that he was trying to make, the positions that he was taking up and things like that. You can see it was really, really working, for him when he came on the pitch, and it really, really helped towards Liverpool, for Liverpool, and towards, the victory. So yeah, I was really, really impressed, with Harvey Elliott, when he came on. And the last player I wanted to take like a bit of a look at was obviously Mo Salah. I said this in my tweet. It doesn't matter how dead Liverpool are playing, or it doesn't matter how dead he's playing, which he was playing absolutely crap, like super duper crap. And he always does against Nouri. I don't know what it is. Nouri, Robinson from Fulham, Cresswell, those kind of defenders. When he comes up against them, he is so rubbish. I don't know what it is. Whatever it is, it just is what it is. It's probably one of those funny things when it comes to Mo Salah. But when he was up against, Nouri, he just wasn't getting a kick at all. But therein lies the difference between, say, him in terms of world-class players and, say, like a Szoboszlai, for example, who's not a world-class player, but he's a very, very good player, but he's not world-class. World-class players can turn it on and off just like that. Click, that's it, straight away. 2 assists. 3 if 3, but 2, let's just go with 2. 2 assists out of nothing, out of absolutely nothing. And that's why you keep players like him on the pitch. That's why players like him always deserve to kind of play, because just like, I'm not saying he's on these kind of levels, but just like the Messis and the Ronaldos and, the players of this kind of ilk, the Mbappes and Haalands and stuff like that, those guys, it's very rare that you'll see them come off, because they'll have games like that. We saw Mbappe during the World Cup. was kind of non-existent, really. In that World Cup, he scores a hat trick out of nothing. Like, where the hell did that hat trick even come from? France playing shit. Did you get what I'm trying to say? And all of a sudden, you score a hat trick. Mo Salah playing absolutely rubbish. All of a sudden, 2 assists out of nothing, just out of nothing. So, yeah, man, he's an interesting one. He is an interesting one, and I think it's going to be super difficult to try to replace, someone like that, because most players, as we saw, in the game, when they're not playing well, they're just not playing well, and then they don't have that world class quality to be able to just change a game. If I'm being totally honest with you, whereas he does, he's one of 2 or 3 players in the team who can do that. No one else is going to do it. Gakpo's not going to do that. Nunes isn't going to do that. Jota's not going to do that. Diaz isn't going to do that. No one in the attack is going to do that, but he will do that more often than not. Kind of thing. He'll have these kind of games, and he's turning into a little bit of a creator, kind of thing. I think that's now 4 games, 5 games, should I say? Sorry, I think, what is it, like 4 assists or something like that, 2 goals as well. Yeah, Mo Salah, he's a funny one, but of course, again, when you're looking at the performance in totality, he was poor. He, just like the rest of them, he was really, really poor. I was not impressed with his performance at all. He definitely needs to buck it up a little bit, in terms of, we can't always keep getting, this lucky, but ultimately we were able to, get lucky. There isn't really anybody else really that I wanted to kind of take a deep dive into. I felt everybody else, Robertson, I felt he was just kind of a bit meaty, but he wasn't. I don't think he was that poor, to be honest with you. I don't think Robertson was that poor in the game. Who else was there? Gakpo. Gakpo before his goal was crap. In fact, to be honest, he was just crap. He was just crap. The goal doesn't mask it. He was actually crap. He wasn't really connecting. Barely touched the ball. Wasn't really getting his passes off. Couldn't really find any space. Couldn't really turn and dribble as much as he likes to do and stuff like that. Yeah, that's with him. Him and Jota, it just wasn't. Nothing was connecting at all. Nothing was connecting at all. Just running around, not doing anything. Luis Diaz, obviously, again, just like Harvey Elliott, live wire came on. I probably say the only sub that, in my opinion, that changed the game was the Harvey Elliott one. That's the one that really changed the game for me. Just purely because of the energy that he kind of brought on. But I still think Liverpool would have won the game anyway, just purely because Wolves just dropped off. I just don't know what it was. They just really, really dropped off. And you can't do that against Liverpool. Quality will always come through. Well, not always, but more often than not, quality will come through. And when you've got a lot more quality than the opposition, it's bound to happen. We saw what happened with Tottenham and Sheffield United. Sheffield United, they were about to get the victory. What happens? Tottenham got that quality. The Kulusevskis of this world, the Richarlisons and stuff like that, who are better players than Sheffield United. Quality will tell. Not in every case, but it will, more often than not, it will tell. And that's just how I saw the game, to be honest with you. I don't think Liverpool, even in totality, played well at all, to be honest with you. But when you've got the quality players in decisive areas, it can work. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I mentioned before about being able to potentially scummy our way, to a title challenge and stuff like that. Because unless it gets better, unless we can really, maybe if we can really start, playing just better. And of course, it's still the early part of the season, so who knows what's going to happen. But yeah, at this current moment in time, it's for me, the way that we're playing, this cannot be sustainable. But I could be completely wrong. And like I mentioned before, if you can scummy your way to a title challenge / potentially winning it, although I don't think playing this way throughout a whole season is going to win you anything because we're just conceding goals and chances, all the time, then I'm here for it. I'm totally here for it. I will be shameless in that kind of sense, but I just don't think it's going to be sustainable. And I think Liverpool really, really need to step it up in terms of the performances, because I don't think the individual quality can keep saving you as the season progresses, as teams start to find rhythm, as teams start to realize, crap, we're in a relegation battle. We need to win this game. So they're going to be trying extra hard. As teams are fighting for certain positions in the league, the Brightons, the Tottenhams, and the Arsenals, the Newcastles, and stuff like that. Once the season starts to get into real full flow, will this be able to work? I'm not 100% confident on that, if I'm being totally honest with you. And that's why I really want Liverpool to kind of step up their game, in a general sense. But Ultimately, Liverpool were able to, get that 3-1 victory regardless. I mean, I mentioned before about defensively. You look here. If I take the banner off, Alisson Becker has, made 19 saves, puts him 7th in the league. And if you even look at the goalkeepers in front of him, I mean, Foderingham, Areola, Burnley, Jose Sarr, Andre Onana, Vicario. We're not talking about these are goalkeepers. They might be decent goalkeepers, but these are goalkeepers of teams who are not doing that well, bar Vicario. The rest, not really teams. I mean, Areola, West Ham are doing okay. Despite that 3-1 loss to Manchester City, they were doing okay, prior to that. But the rest of them, their teams are not really doing that well, anyway. So the fact that, someone like Alisson is facing so many, shots in games, again, can you keep up that rate all the way throughout the season? We saw what happened last season. Alisson can only save you so much. He can only save you so much. And for me, that's why I give the performance a 10, a 6. I think I gave it a 6. Yeah, I was going to go 5.5, but I'll say a 6 because we were so much better, obviously, in that second half. But it's probably a 6 out of 10 type of performance. I mean, I just can't sit there and lie to you guys and say, oh my goodness, we were amazing. I don't feel like we was amazing. I just feel like Wolves literally just dropped off. They just dropped off. They could not keep up the level of intensity. We were just on the ball more. And like I said, when you've got quality players able to get on the ball a lot more, these are the kind of things, that could potentially happen. But, as I said, right now, for the first 10 games of the season, it doesn't even matter. Just keep getting the victories. Keep getting the victories. Put the points on the board, and then obviously we can, move forward. But obviously, let me know what you guys think, in the comment section below. Were you happy with that performance? Do you really even care at this kind of stage? Because we're getting 3 points and we can obviously move on. Is there anything you guys are kind of worried about, in regards to the team? Is there anything that we maybe need to look at and stuff like that? Let me know, obviously, what you guys think in the comment section. Who was your man of the match for the game as well? Please, please, please make sure you guys are posting the comments out. I'll make sure I always reply to as many people as I possibly can. That is today's match reaction done and dusted. I'm G, and we are outie.